Welcome out to the weekly Mastermind call, everyone. This is November 30th, last day of the month, so this is when everybody should be pushing for the next rank, so good luck on that. I wanted to take this opportunity with this particular Mastermind call to fulfill a request from someone who, actually Jerry Chandler, who asked us to do a phone call, and we wanted to get specifically, I wanted to talk to moms, and if you're not a mom or you're not a woman, this is still a fantastic call for you because you need to know how to mentor people through this process who are women on your team. So this is going to be, in fact, I'm super stoked about this topic. But basically what the topic was, or what the question was how, as a mom that has everything that you have to do, and in addition to your mother activities, those of you that are homeschooling. If you are homeschooling and you're trying to, and you are a busy mom with everything that you have to do, how did you make time for your doTERRA business? All right. So how in the world did you pull this off? And so star 5-star raises your hand. This is all for the women on the call. Men, we're just going to sit here and listen. So if you're a mom and you have built this business and you have little kids, and we know how demanding they can be, and maybe you were homeschooling your kids, so you've got an extraordinarily full plate. How did you do it? How did you make time? Star 5-star to raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing some more moms enter the call, and so I'm going to just go ahead and ask the question again. This call is all about moms. You had little kids, you have little kids, maybe you were homeschooling those kids, you have an extraordinarily full plate. The question is how did you do it? How did you find the time? How did you make the time to create your doTERRA business too? That is the question. Star 5-star to raise your hand. All right. I have a 208 area code. I just unmuted your line. What's your name and what is your comment?
My name is Kathy Baker, and I love this because I recently just asked the same question to somebody that I know homeschools and does all this stuff. So I personally am just now in the process of applying these, but I thought maybe I could share some of her tips if she isn't on the call.
Great. Perfect.
Okay. So, because I've got 3 kids, and that's been a big stressor. And I'm just like, I want to do so much, but I don't have financially the budget to go out and pay $30 a day in babysitting or daycare or things like that. And the best thing she told me, she goes, you need to troubleshoot in 5 different ways. So if the results of babysitting means money, you need to problem solve this in 3 or 4 different ways. She goes, it doesn't have to come out of pocket. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, exchange oils. You know, a lot of people, you can get those 5 milliliters of wild orange really cheap or things like that, or if you save up your points and have things. She goes, some people will exchange in oils. Find a single mom or a young couple that has maybe kids and then exchange services to where they help you throughout the week. Then on the weekend, you let them go for a big date night or something like that. And then she also said, finding a homeschooled high school aged kid because they tend to be a little more responsible and then they're usually done by 12 o'clock because she homeschools. So she homeschools with her kids from 8 to 12. And then from 1 to 5, that is strictly her business to where her kids are either watched. They're a little older so they can help themselves too. But in the beginning, she would find older aged homeschooled kids that were done around the same time and could come and just sit with her kids or watch them. And then in exchange, for help with schoolwork or things like that. And I know Janet Marquez has found that as well. She has a homeschooled high school age kid that really helps out and has allowed Janet a lot more free time and brain space because now she has an extra hand when she needs to focus on the business. So it doesn't have to come out of your pocket. I love to bake. And so I know a lot of high schoolers that would happily take home a dozen cupcakes, you know, for watching my kids 2 hours a day. And so I love that because I was stressed on money. I don't have the money. That's why I'm doing this. I'm trying to get the money. And it doesn't have to come out of your money. So the biggest tip was just brainstorm, problem solve, 5 different ways. Don't get stuck on, well, this takes this. No, it doesn't only take that. There are a bunch of different options. You just have to get creative.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Cassie. So, so let's just summarize the points that you've made because I think they're all gold. So the first thing that I heard was just getting creative and problem solving in different ways than you would, so it doesn't take exactly what people think. So you were mentioning, I think that ultimately you were saying you first have to find someone to watch the kids, right? That's
right. Ultimately, yeah, whether it's an in-law or a relative or somebody in your church or somebody that has, like, I'm just aiming for 2 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. And and so I found somebody with younger kids that's willing to actually exchange doing the Desiree's like Awaken Yourself course and using my oils. So I'm going to sit down and do the protocols and use my oils. So yes, finding somebody that has the ability to do that. That is the first task.
I thought it was a really interesting idea that you mentioned a homeschooled high schooler because they do finish earlier in the day. You're right. They typically do finish at noon, and they're available.
And I've told that
really good kids too.
That they're at kind of a more mature level because they have different types of responsibilities.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Those are awesome ideas. Okay. Courtney Moses has her hand raised. Courtney, what advice can you give us for how to do this?
Well, I'm sure like everyone else, you feel a little bit inadequate speaking, and I do right now. Because I think I don't know how.
Well, you shouldn't.
I don't know if I'm still doing it. But I love some of the suggestions that were already said, and I just want to add to that a little bit. I found that sometimes when exchanging oils for services, sometimes we do ourselves an injustice by doing that because then those people have no incentive of getting a membership. You know what I mean? And so I first started doing that, and then I started taking that a step further. And so I ended up contacting the local college where I lived. I lived in Twin Falls, Idaho, and I contacted CSI there and got into the groups of like bookkeeping. I said, I want to know who's looking for an internship on bookkeeping, and was able to get a hold of students that would do like my books for free because they just wanted that experience. You know what I mean? Same thing with cooking. I found a chef that cooked for us 4 meals a week and just wanted that on his resume that he was a personal chef for a CEO, right? So I think there's a lot. Really, this comes down to, it's not how do we create the time, but really I think the better question is, what support did we put in our life to help us get through this as moms? Because that's really what we're talking about. It's not a matter of creating time. It's what level of support did we need, right? And I think that goes through a lot of different stages. Just as if you're raising a child, you know, that first stage is I have to teach them how to walk. I have to constantly watch them and make sure they're not pulling things over on them or putting things in their mouth they shouldn't be, right? Well, it's like that with doTERRA too. And so, you know, I realized I had to cut out the extra stuff, right? So my kids didn't play sports, but I knew that stage would be over and there would be a stage that they could play sports. Does that make sense? So like right now, I let my kids play sports in the summer and that's it. You know, I'm a single mom. I'm trying to do this. And I can't take them 4 nights a week to put them in sports year round. My business would suffer. But I can commit to that during the summer. And they don't get to play sports in the fall and the spring. And I'm okay with that because that's the stage that we're in. So I think a lot of this is just getting rid of that mommy guilt of not being able to provide everything for our kids that we want to provide and understand that that's going to come in stages as our business grows in stages, and then just getting that support that you need in your life. There was a time when I did daycare. I put my kids in a daycare. I started out with doTERRA with a 1, 2, and 3-year-old, and I put them in daycare 2 days a week. Those 2 days a week, I was doing a lot of phone calls, right? But then I was okay the rest of the time to not do as many phone calls with them. And then let's just get really, raw and vulnerable here and just say, when I couldn't afford the daycare, I was hiding behind as many doors in my house as possible, just right? And so it's like, yeah, there's times that I put in more money to get more support in my life to be able to do this. And there's times that I was able to exchange different services. And then there's just times that you just freaking live through the dang trenches. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but you just know and accept that it's the stage that I'm in, and that's okay. Like, I think sometimes we feel like we have to do it all, and we don't. It comes in stages.
Right. Thank you. So there's a lot of people that have joined the call since I started this, and I wanted to kind of recap what's happening. I got a request to do a call for moms, specifically for moms that want to know how you make time in your business. Like even if you're homeschooling, let's say that you're a homeschool mom trying to build a doTERRA business, how did you do it? And I want to actually, so there's a couple things that you said there that was pretty cool, Courtney. One of them was that you called the local college and found people who would like to do an internship to do bookkeeping for you or to even cook. So someone who is in like a culinary program, and you said, hey, come and be my private chef for however many nights per week, and then they got to put that on their resume that they were a private chef or a CEO. And hey,
I mean,
all of
it's
us
golden.
are the CEO
It is
of our
golden. Exactly. And I did that with bookkeeping. I even mentored some of my teams on that. Like I know that Kim Allen even did that with her bookkeeping. I was very good about, hey guys, go do this. I mean, there's college right here. You can find a chef, you can find a bookkeeper, you can find a housekeeper, there's a lot you could do and not have to exchange product and lose that opportunity of giving someone a membership, But I think there's just some things like that we can do. And just one other thing I want to say too is that I also had to get really good about time blocking and being committed to those times, right? And so that was one thing that I sat down with Rod and we did this productivity model. And that was really life-changing for me when it came to building my business, because it wasn't waking up in the day going, okay, how am I going to do all of this? It was waking up going, okay, in this hour I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And it categorized my entire day from this is when I'm cleaning, this is when I'm making sales calls, this is when I'm teaching classes, this is when I'm doing mentoring calls. And I just got extremely clear on every hour of what had to happen throughout the day and plug that in. And without that clarity, I think I would have been running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. Like I don't think I would have been able to do it even with the support in my life, because I wasn't clear on what I was needing to accomplish that day. So I think just time blocking when you have so many demands on you in life is one of the best things that you can do to make sure you have that clarity, that then you know what support you need, how to bring it in, when to bring it in, right?
Right. Okay. We have more hands raised, more comments. Joanna. I think that's Johanna? Or Joanna, one of those. Go ahead. I just said Joanna.
Johanna. It's Johanna, Seth.
Hi. Thank you.
So I am actually, funny enough, sitting at the table listening to the call while my daughter is doing her math homework. So I am this mom who is building this business and homeschooling my 2 kids. And I just want to say, like, for me, like last year I was doing this as well, and I didn't organize, or I didn't schedule my time at all. And so I felt really kind of crazy and chaotic throughout the year. And then, so going into this school year, I said, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to make sure that I have devoted time to school, to teaching, to, everything that goes into educating your children. And then I'm going to have my doTERRA time where my kids know that we're not doing school during that time. So that's like break time where they can do, just other projects that they want to do. And that I will be busy during that time. And that whatever questions they have, whatever comes up, like, it has to wait until that time is done. And so kind of like Courtney was saying, just really being clear about what you're doing and where that time is supposed to be focused, where you're supposed to be focused during that time, has made a really big difference for me. And it's also, I think, helped the relationship that I have with my kids, them knowing that I'm fully focused on school for this period of time. And, I'm all there. And then there's, those times where they know that it's time to leave me alone and let me, do the business activities that I need to be doing. So that has been a really big change since last year and this year. But I am so excited to hear other moms that are further along than I am and what they have done, because this is just the beginning for me. So.
Yeah. So basically then you just had to get really clear with you and your kids what was happening when, and withhold some of, like, if they needed a break or if they needed some sort of reward, that you were saying, okay, that reward is happening during this time when I'm doing some stuff with my business, and ultimately that was kind of, you would have to take those breaks anyway, but you were just doing it in a more structured way.
Yes. And so, when they're like, oh, we want to do this or we want to do that, it's like, no, you have to wait for this and this time. Because, with homeschooling, you do have a lot of flexibility, and it's easy to take advantage of that flexibility and then, pay the price later, kind of. And so, there are those days where, like, I'll have to rearrange the schedule, and I'd be like, well, I have this scheduled, so we're going to actually be doing homework this afternoon at 2:00, versus starting in the morning because I have business things that need to get done, in those earlier hours. So, you do have to play with that idea, but being clear about where your focus is for those time periods throughout the day makes a really big difference, because as a mom, we try to multitask and do everything all at once, and it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
So we have to, again, make that space, that brain space, where we can be all in with making phone calls and know that we're in the right posture, we're in the right space to be, inviting people to classes and not be, on the phone inviting somebody while trying to, answer math questions necessarily at the same time. But being clear with my kids so that they know, like, mommy's on the call right now, so that question's going to have to wait until we're done, and giving them that, that space of, like, no, go play. This is your break play time, and then we'll come back to it after I'm done with the activities that need to get done.
Perfect. Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as I'm listening to these, all these great ideas that are coming, it's just bringing to mind all the times when I saw the same thing happen, and one of the things that I'm hearing is not necessarily being said. Courtney said did kind of mention it, but is that you can't be everything to everyone, and so one of the skills I'm hearing is the ability to say no, because sometimes in order to say yes to something, it means saying no to other things. And a lot of times those other things are really good. And I don't think that, like a lot of times people feel like, well, if I can say yes to everything good in my life and I'll just say no to everything bad. And a lot of times you have to say yes to great things and no to good things. And that can be where it's difficult. Nancy Porter, what are your thoughts?
Hi, Seth. Thanks for unmuting my line. I actually am going through a transition. So I previously worked full time. I have 5 kids, one of which is not in school yet. I'm not homeschooling my children. I can't say that I'm that brave. But my children range from 4 to almost 19. My oldest daughter is actually a really huge support for me. So I have a really unique setup. She's actually on my front line. She enrolled with doTERRA when she turned 18. And we have some really huge goals to build this business also for her as well, for her to pursue some of her higher dreams. And so she and I work together. when I have things going on and I need help with the children, the younger children, she steps in and helps me. And in turn, I'm helping her as well to support her as she learns to do this business too, because I'm still in the beginning stages myself, being silver. The other thing is I've been very clear with my children. They know that mommy has this goal that we need to meet, and that's going to mean that things are a little bit untraditional for a while. Meaning on Saturdays when they would normally have my full attention all day long, I'm going to have to pop out and go teach a class for a few hours and then come back home. So I was really, really clear with my children from the beginning. It's not going to be the way it has been in the past where I'm at work while you're at school and then I pick you up from school in the evening time. Things are going to be different, but when you have me, you have my full attention. So when I do plan activities with my kids, they have my full attention when we plan something special. The other thing is I had a hard time with not letting them play sports or something like that, and that will really eat up a bunch of your time. But I've decided that the things that my children are involved in, I'm going to use as a networking opportunity. So when I'm at my children's basketball games or soccer games, or for instance, I'm involved in their parent club, I'm always using that as a networking opportunity to reach out and meet new people and expand my network. For instance, after this call, I'm heading over to the school book fair, and I'm going to have my sample case with me because although I'm volunteering time to the school, it's going to be natural for me to talk about the oils with the people that I encounter there. People are always complaining about their health. And so I'm going to use that as time that I can work and multitask. And then I do actually swap childcare one day a week, but I got a little creative there too. When I quit my full-time job and I decided to do doTERRA full-time, I'm in a transition financially where I went out and looked into low-cost preschool for my 4-year-old. And I found a program in my community where he can go to preschool for 3 hours a day, and it's free. Because of my financial situation, it's free. And I was actually over income, but they have programs where you can be over income, but they have to allow a certain number of over income families into the program. And that means two things for me. My son's getting preschool 3 hours a day, so he's getting that education, and mommy has 3 hours a day of doTERRA, where I have 3 hours a day every single day where all of my children are cared for. And I can focus on just doTERRA. And sometimes that means I'm sitting in the parking lot of Walmart having a mentor call on my cell phone, sitting in the car. Sometimes I'm needing to do a one-to-one or a class. It really means something different every day, but I know that I can schedule that time. So I would encourage mothers to just be resourceful and look into what resources are in their community, be really clear and have that clear conversation with your kids, because my kids are totally fine with me leaving them because they know that I have a goal and things are going to change and we're going to move forward. So because my children understand what I'm doing now, they can be accepting of losing a little bit of time from me and things being untraditional.
I actually think, Nancy, that is fantastic advice, because I think the key to the parents that I've seen succeed in this involved their children in their dreams and goals. They were setting their goals with their kids, and while their kids maybe couldn't go out and do a class for them, they could at least be emotionally supportive of their parent as they were going out and doing it, and then celebrate those successes with the kids. I remember when I reached Diamond, driving back home late at night, and coming in, when the kids woke up the next morning telling them that we reached Diamond, and we all did the happy dance, and we were, dancing around the kitchen and dining room area, and and then we had a Disneyland trip scheduled if we hit Diamond, and so they were all excited about it. And anyway, so I agree with you completely. That's so important.
I promised my children that. It's funny that you say that because I promised my children a trip to Disneyland when I hit gold. And they reminded me of that the other day because my children they just know all of my goals. We have it written up. The vision board is up. We talk about it. My kids read it. And they know that that's my plan for January. And they're like, so we're going to go to Disneyland in January. So, you know, they're
Yes.
supportive. They know that this is going to benefit all of us.
Right. Thank you. Perfect advice. Kristen Fox, I've just unmuted your line. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm here. Oh gosh, this is a great call. I'm so glad you're doing this. Okay, so I have lots of thoughts going in my head. Hang on, just one second. Can you go out, please?
This is perfect. See, you're a mom right now.
No, I'm locking the door. Locking the door. I have my 2-year-old here with 2-year-old twins and my babies in my room, and my living room is full of all of the clothes that I still have to hang from moving. So it's fantastic. Okay, so I just I feel like my life is in constant shifting mode, and the main thing that I'm doing right now is trying to be consistent in the most important things in my life. Nathan is reading a book right now called The One Thing. And the principle behind this book is that you ask yourself the question, what is the one thing that I can do such that everything in my life either becomes easier or unnecessary? That is the one thing. So what's interesting about this call is that I've been asking myself this question. And I've also been doing I'm not as consistent as I need to be with this, but when I do it, it's fantastic, and that is early morning prayer, 15 minutes of out loud prayer, and then I journal, and I write things down, and I just have quiet time with myself. I had heard that this is a really great thing and that we all need to take time for ourselves, and the only time I have time where it's quiet is in the middle of the night. And I have 5 children. I do send the older 3 to school, but the 2 little ones are at home and a huge job, and I work doTERRA pretty much full time. And so during this time with me in the middle of the night, it was about 1 a.m. a couple of nights ago, so everybody was in bed, I was asleep, and then I woke up and I got some things done with just myself. And one of the things was that the idea came to my mind, set a schedule, to start writing your hours down, and then I will tell you what to write in those time frames. And what happened was that I found that there was time for me to get up and get ready for the day, and then there were 3 sections of 2-hour periods where I could be productive, either in doTERRA, in the house, or projects with the children. And some days those were going to be strictly doTERRA. Some days it's going to be almost all home. But if I wanted, I can always at least work 2 hours a day. And in those 2 hours a day, I figured out, okay, I can have Kyla on a TV show, and I can be nursing Kinley, or she can be asleep. Or, okay, the big kids are home from school, so they can be with the kids, and I can be locked in my room. Or Nathan can have the kids because he's home from work, so I can be out in the car or be at an appointment or out. And so I actually don't have external daycare that I'm using right now because my life is constantly, it is changing. I'm in a stage where I know I'm going to be coming out of it, but this is what I'm doing. So I feel like these are all really great ideas because for everyone's life, it's going to be a little bit different. But if you want to know what's right for you, if you have this idea in your mind and you've had this feeling like I have, like you do doTERRA. No matter what else you're doing in your life, you do doTERRA. And you put motherhood as a high priority in your life. You have to do that. These are revelations to me that I've tried to kind of skirt around and get around. I've tried to quit doTERRA. I've tried to work doTERRA full time and stop being a mom. I've tried to do all these things. And for me, when I'm connected with God, because I believe in Him and I trust Him and I see the evidence of His answers to my prayers in my daily life for years on end, I can trust Him. And so I just simply have to make time to be open to Him and then let my day flow. So yes, what Courtney is saying is so true. Like you have to make sure that you have time set aside to be dedicated to specific activities. So like right now, I feel like I'm Jacqueline. Like I don't have time to just hang out and organize my oils. Some of my oil bottles don't have labels on them right now. If I'm going to a booth or if I'm going to an event, that on my way there, I'll be putting labels on. But I'm not going to sit there and make time to organize my oils or anything like that. I am making phone calls to specific people who have asked me for certain things who are coming toward me. and that is it right now. And so making time for me, so let me just explain this one more thing and then I'll be done. So I have 2-hour sections at different times of the day. I have a 9 to 11 period. I have a 1 to 3 period, and I have it's actually 6 to 9 period, so that's a 3-hour period. PM, 6 to 9 p.m. Those are the time periods that I have allotted for me to do extra things. Everything else in my day I either do before, during, or after, so I have in between those 2-hour periods, I'm doing laundry, I'm cooking, I'm spending time with the children, I'm doing homework with the kids, whatever. So those different sections allow me space to work. And sometimes it's going to be all of those are doTERRA, and sometimes it's going to look different, like, oh, well, I'm moving, so I'm going to be unpacking boxes during this period, or the kids have a book fair, so I'm going to be over here. Does that make sense? So
sure. So give me those hours again. What hours were you?
So I do a 9 to 11. Because I do lunch between 12 and 1, and then I put children down for sleep at 1 o'clock. So then my next period begins at 1 o'clock, and it's to 3. So that's either quiet time or nap time for the little people. And then the next, so then at 3 o'clock, between 3 and 6 is major kid time. And the kids are coming in from school, we're doing homework, I'm cooking dinner, it's crazy. And sometimes that lasts until 9 o'clock and I'm home. But if I need to schedule something in the evening, I've allotted myself a 6 to 9 period, 6 o'clock to 9 p.m., where I either am in my room making phone calls, doing Zoom calls, business calls, member overviews, or I'm out doing classes. That's what I do. And there's certain days a week that work better with my husband's schedule for that. But every day I know that those are the times where I'm focused doing me stuff. And I figured out, how to deal with the little people in all those scenarios without outside help. So that's how I work right now.
No, that's exactly. And then I love the fact that we can hear your kids in the background, because it just tells me that, this is just authentic. And I'm loving everything I'm hearing from everybody, because I think the message is that if it's important to you, you figure it out. And one of the things you can do that we've heard across the board is that you do set aside time, and you put aside those blocks of time to get this done. Jacqueline Child, Kristen actually just mentioned you in her comments. I'm going to go to you next.
Okay, so I'm kind of laughing because I've been doing this it will be 6 years in April. And it is really interesting to see how things change through the years. One thing for myself, I wake up at 5 in the morning and I do like what Kristen is saying, I do like scriptures and journaling, and I pray, and I read a little bit of business book, and then about 6 o'clock.
What time do you do that, Jacqueline? Like when in the morning are you doing that?
5 in the morning.
What time are you doing that? So you get up at 5 a.m. and you spend time in scripture, prayer, and journaling.
Right, and sometimes the baby wakes up and wants to eat. It doesn't always go perfectly. And then I read a little of the business book too. I found that's really important. Sometimes, like today, I literally spent probably a minute reading in my business book because something happened and, my baby woke up and wanted to eat. But I found that, if I don't do that my life is very difficult for me to deal with. And it's worth it. An extra hour of sleep could never be worth what I get from that. And about 6 a.m., it's chaos ensues. I'm making lunches. I'm getting my son off to early morning seminary. I'm getting kids on the bus. I have one daughter that goes to kindergarten full time. I have my son who's in high school full time, and then I have a daughter who just does band, but she rides the bus in the morning, and I pick her up, and then I do homeschool with her the rest of the day, and then 2 of my other kids, my 8 and 10-year-old that I homeschool, and so it's it's just when I think about the last almost 6 years. Our life is so different now than it was when I started, but it's just like you said, you figure out a way to make it work. And one thing I've noticed is there's times when we'll really push hard, and then it gets too much for us, and we'll pull back a little bit. But I found that that's okay. Like, there's times to push really hard and then pull back. As long as you don't ever pull back past, like a safe, like, so I think if you continue to make sure you're meeting the 6-1 schedule, that's fine, as long as that's met. And then there's going to be times when you push yourself harder, and then it just is more than our family can handle, so we pull back. But it's kind of interesting because every time you push, you find new leaders, and hopefully by the end of the push, you've kind of trained them in what you're supposed to do. So that when you pull back a little bit, they're actually more independent. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. So another thing that's really helped me, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but at convention, they introduced the Daily Drop app. They introduced it 2 conventions ago, but they introduced the Determine My Mood app. And that has been really useful for me when I'm feeling anxious or whatever feeling I'm feeling at the moment. That app has really helped pinpoint oils that I probably would have never gotten out because maybe I don't necessarily love the smell. But I found that I need balance and peace a lot. And I do like the smell of balance, but not so much peace. But boy, peace especially, like if I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed with stuff, it is so calming. Like it calms me down every time, no matter how overwhelmed I'm feeling. So use that app. I mean, I'm not joking. A lot of times it's not the situation that's the problem, it's how we feel about it that's the problem. And so I have loved that app. Another thing that has kind of been interesting. So I'm a highly involved homeschool mom, meaning a lot of people here, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they'll say like we do homeschool from 8 to noon or whatever. That is not how I do homeschool at all because my kids are incredibly social. And so they like if I just stop school at 1, it's like it's a miserable life. And the way I figured that out was this last month or so, I didn't get my kids in some of the activities they usually are in. And I thought, wow, this is going to be so amazing. I'm going to have so much more time. It has actually ended up being a much more frustrating experience because I found that my life actually goes better when I have a few more activities as a homeschool mom going on because then my kids have motivation to get their work done quickly. To get to the activity. And then again, when you're at the activity, it's networking opportunities. It's also sometimes I might, get in my car while they're doing the activity and do some intercalls, things like that. But that's just an idea for homeschool moms. If you're wondering about that, sometimes, you can do too much, but you can also do too little. I have found that you need something to motivate your kids to help them want to get their work done quickly. And I'm like the worst at scheduling. Like I always have this great, wonderful plan of like blocking these 2 hours of it never works for me. It just doesn't work. It never works out the way I planned. It's crazy. I wish it did. I know that it's just my personality or something. But I'll be like, okay, David, I just need 2 hours a day. Just 2 hours where I can focus on. That doesn't ever happen. And I know that a bunch of you said it does for you. It just doesn't for me, and I don't know what's wrong with me. But there has to be others of you out there like me that are like, that doesn't work. So what I have to say to you about that is it's okay because I can't do that. And I'm doing really well in doTERRA. So for those of you who I have tried with all my heart to like time block and it just doesn't work. It's just, I don't know. It must be something about my personality that makes it never work. So
that's perfect.
You just fit it in.
I think that I'm glad you brought that up because what Cassie was saying at the beginning of the call was that you have to trouble solve or problem solve, right? And I think that basically one of the problems that you have to solve is how it's going to work for you. And nobody understands you like you do. And so hopefully, if you're sitting here on the call, I hope that you can kind of take, it's like a buffet line, right? You can take what works for you and leave the rest. Now, Jacqueline, I'm actually gonna ask you a follow-up question, because you said something a while ago that I've always have used when I mentor people, and that is that you said that instead of trying to, build doTERRA, like fit doTERRA in around your life, you fit your life in around doTERRA. And sometimes people go, well, doesn't that just mean that doTERRA is the center of your life and the most important thing and all that stuff? And I don't think that that's what it means, but it just means that you give it a major priority. And would you mind kind of touching on that a bit?
Sure. So there are certain things in my life that are a higher priority than doTERRA. And one would be like my family, my children. I would say homeschooling is a higher priority than doTERRA. And so knowing that about myself, like I would never let those things slip or fall. Like they will always get the attention they need. I will make it happen. Maybe not perfectly, but I'll make it happen. So I found that I really did have to make doTERRA like the kind of the center and then put everything around it, because otherwise I'd never get to it. It would never be a priority enough that I would actually get it done. And one of the great things, like I mentioned, when I started almost 6 years ago, I mean, I had really little, I still do. I have a 17-month-old, but I had like a totally different setup. Like now I have teenagers who are like and teenage sports are like 100 times worse than kids sports. I can tell you right now. It's like so all encompassing and then ASB and there's just so many things going on that it's so different. Like how I run things now is just different than I used to. And I guess my biggest thing would be to say, spend some time, even if you can't devote an hour like I try to in the morning, even if you can spend 15 minutes, like spend some quiet time, because when you do, and sometimes it happens right as I'm waking up in the morning, but you will receive inspiration and guidance to how to make something work. That just happened with me this morning. It was amazing. There was something that I really wanted to do that I haven't made a priority for like the last month, and I was like, what in the world? How am I going to make it work? And it totally came to me, like how to do it, and it works perfectly. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And so you're going to have those moments, and just listen to them. And I think the biggest thing is don't quit. Like you might push harder and pull back a little bit with doTERRA, but you should never quit sharing. Like you should never quit doTERRA. It might be that you're just using it in your own life and for your family's benefit for a little while, but don't quit. It's when we quit that we fail. I've never seen a single person fail in doTERRA. I've seen a ton of people quit. But we all have this different idea of what doing doTERRA is. We all want to reach huge ranks very quickly. Maybe that's not for you, but as you're consistently working, you're going to get there. And you're going to, at the least, you're going to get the products in your home, and you're going to touch several people's lives, family, friends, and their life will never be the same. I looked at my family and my children and how they view nutrition, how they view beauty products, health products, how they view exercise. I mean, I am so proud of them and their desire to be healthy, to keep chemicals out of their life. I mean, and it's going to be passed on for generations, and that's exciting. Like, that's a wonderful thing. So I guess my main thing is it's not all going to work out perfectly. Your life changes a lot. There's a lot of different changes and flux and different things, but just don't quit.
Yep.
So
thanks, Jacqueline. I can't
Seth.
express how much I love you.
Ditto, big
yes,
time.
Go ahead.
Hey, sorry, it's Courtney. I just want to add on top of what Jacqueline is saying, because this has been last about 15 minutes or so. I've been thinking about this, but you have to, I think as a mom doing this, you have to be all in or just not in. And what I mean by that is that if you're not, you're constantly distracted with motherhood. And I don't mean that in a negative way. And I've been debating on, do I say this, do I not say it? But I'm going to just say it. What I've noticed with mothers who succeed in doTERRA and those that don't is the ones that do are all in. they know what doTERRA is going to do for them and their family. They know that. They're not sitting back wondering, and they have big dreams around it. And when you don't go all in with doTERRA and you don't have these big dreams and see the difference of what it's going to make with your life, then it's too easy when something comes up with your kids that you're too focused on what you're not giving them at that time, whether it's attention or time or certain sporting activity or something like that. You're too focused on that in the time, in that moment, that you can't let that go. You're not willing to give that up because you're not all in doTERRA. Does that make sense? And so it's just not worth it. At that point, if you're not all in, it's not worth it. You're going to choose the motherhood. And I'm not saying we don't not choose motherhood. I just don't know how to put words around this. But all I know is that if you choose doTERRA and you know that it is going to be a part of your life till you freaking die on this earth, like I'm saying, all in, come hell or high water, I'm going to do this every damn day, then you're okay to put other things on the side for now. And I know that probably sounds so harsh, but it ticks me off because I hear people say, well, this is my, last summer with my kids before they go to college. And I'm thinking, okay, but are they dying? You're really never going to have another summer with your daughter? I know that sounds totally rude of me, right? Or you hear people say, this is the last year with my baby before they go to school. And I'm like, I know, I get that. I started with a 1, 2, and 3-year-old, right? It's a stage. But if you don't choose all in to live doTERRA every freaking day, then you don't end up choosing it is the problem. And then you sit there and you spin your wheels and you get frustrated and you say, yep, see, this just doesn't work when you're a mom. You can't do this unless your kids are older and they're doing this or it doesn't work for homeschool moms. Your kids have to be in school, right? Just because you're focused on the wrong part.
Yes. So let me soften what Courtney just said.
Yeah, I know. It's totally not okay how I said that. I know it. I'm sorry, everybody.
No.
And I really don't want to offend anybody. I hope you know I love moms. I love my kids. I love being a mom. I love doTERRA, but I just see us making the wrong, maybe not the best.
Well, what it is people use things as excuses. And that drives Courtney up the wall and I'll tell you why. because Courtney has every single excuse that everybody's ever had. And at times 10. And so, but at the same time, if you had listened to those excuses in the past, you would be in a horrible situation today. And the fact that you didn't allow those things to become excuses means that when tragedy hit your family in massive ways, you actually came through okay. And so but I think instead of saying, choosing motherhood or whatever, what I'm going to say is that if you don't make doTERRA a priority, then life will always get in the way. Life in general. It doesn't have to be motherhood because I'm not a mom, but I am a dad. And everything, if you don't allow, let's say this, if you're not pursuing a goal, then life will find a way to take up the time that you have. And so if you're not actively pursuing something that you want, then life will fill up the space. And it always does. And it always will. And the thing about our excuses is that they're so good, we actually believe them. And so it's just a matter of saying, kind of like what we've been hearing from all of these moms. I think that, like Nancy really was saying it well earlier, and that is that you just have to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Because none of us should expect a job-dropping, life-changing retirement income without any effort. It's going to take effort. Jerry Chandler, what are your thoughts? By the way, Jerry, thanks for sending me that message that we needed to do this as a topic. It's turned out fantastic. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Thank you. Because as a mom, I feel like a lot of times it's just that whole thing of misery loves company, knowing that there's other people fighting the battle, hearing other people's experiences and stories is comforting. It's comforting to know that I'm not in this alone, that I'm not the only one, trying to homeschool my kids and run a doTERRA business and do all the other crazy things that life has. I'm not the only one. And it's good to know that. It's good to hear that. But I've been really working on this topic for a while now. I've been doing doTERRA now for 3 years, and I've homeschooled my 4 kids the whole time, and I've moved from state to state, and it's been a challenge finding balance in my life and being able to show up for my kids and still do what I want to accomplish in my business. And I had a really interesting experience. I've done the scheduling. I've done, I've thought outside of the box. I've done a lot of different things, and some things work and some things don't, and some things work for a little while. But this a couple of weeks ago, I was in Dallas at a Silver Summit with Justin Harrison and David Ellis, and they had a panel discussion up there, and the question came up, how do we find balance in everything that we're doing? And I thought it was really funny. I can't remember if it was Justin or David that said it first, but they kind of played off each other, and they're like, who cares about balance? Like, the whole point of being a part of doTERRA is to create imbalance in our life, because once we're successful and we have that extra time that we have, according to the world's look on things, we are seeking imbalance in our life. So why are you seeking balance now just to get to imbalance later? And that really clicked with me. It was like permission to be okay with being different. and that concept of just choosing imbalance instead of constantly trying to create it, and choosing it now so that I can have it in the future as well, was so refreshing. It was so, so nice. And just that permission to be like, hey, who cares about balance? Just seek imbalance, because that's the goal that we're all wanting to accomplish in this business anyway.
Yes.
The only other thing.
Now,
go ahead.
Can I touch on that a little bit? I think that's probably the biggest problem that moms face, is that they feel out of balance while they're doing this. And the thing, and I just want to maybe be a third witness to what David and Justin said, and that is that actually the thing that makes a fantastic life is periods of imbalance. When you're totally, like when I was running for Diamond, I was out of balance. I was all in. Like I was out of balance, totally into doTERRA. And then when I reached Diamond, the Blue Diamond, oh my gosh, I went all the way out of balance in other ways. Family time, service in my church and community. I was out of balance. I was spending way too much time, or way more time, in those areas than I ever had in my life. I was out of balance. I wasn't doing anything with work necessarily. I mean, maybe a few hours a week. And you know what I mean? And so you're correct. You're absolutely right. Keep going, Jerry.
Well, I was just going to say, like a lot of the other women on here have been talking about, it really comes down to thinking outside of the box and finding what works for you, and doing it in a trial and error basis. And sometimes it'll work for a little while and then it won't. And instead of getting frustrated, become a problem solver and find something else. And right now, one thing that has really helped me, and hopefully this helps some moms out there, is I found a high schooler who has a very active schedule but needs to earn some money. She has a driver's license, and I pay her to be my personal assistant. I pay her $10 an hour, and she does things like run to the post office for me, or fills out labels, or makes up flyers, or does the things that I don't need to do. I don't have the time to do, and my time is more valuable either with my family or with my builders or with my clients. And I can eliminate some of the busy stuff and give it to someone who could fill it in so that she can be active in her period of life right now and still earn some money on the side. And it looks really good on her resume. So that's one thing that has been life-changing for me, is just hiring a personal assistant. She gets about 5 hours a week, and it has taken a lot of weight off my shoulders. So just another drop in the bucket for ideas.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Jerry. In fact, can I just let me share this? I know this is all about the moms. I don't want to share too much on this call, but there was a point in my life where I had a goal of earning about $250,000 in a 100-day period. And I set aside 10 hours a day to do that kind of work. And 10 hours a day in 100 days meant that my time had to do, everything I did in that 100-day period had to be worth $250 per hour. And so anything that I was doing that was not worth $250 per hour, I would simply not do it. And if I had to do it, I would do it not in the 10 hours I had set aside to work. And the only reason I bring that up is because during that time I also set aside time to spend time with my kids. And there were 3 times in the week that I would go and spend a couple hours with them in the middle of my work day, swimming or playing or at a park or something like that. And I realized that when I was doing that, that time was worth $250 an hour, and I willingly paid it. I said, "Yep, this is worth $500 for me to spend 2 hours with my kids right now." And it really shifted the way that I started seeing the time that I did spend with my kids, that it's priceless. And then on the other hand, I also made sure that the time I spent while I was building my business at that time, that every activity was worth $250 an hour, or I didn't do it. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, Jerry, because there a lot of times we're busy, feeling like we're being busy with doTERRA, but we're actually wasting a lot of time. Molly, what are your thoughts?
Hi. So I have had, lots of thoughts throughout this call, but the thing that keeps coming back to me is how important certain things are that have been said. For me, I've always been a schedule person. I've always loved schedules. They've made me feel sane. And what happened, though, with me as a schedule person is I got to where I was scheduling myself almost to the minute. And my scheduler was all color-coded and down to the minute. And I was so proud that I was so busy. But what was happening is exactly the things that you're saying. It ended up being I wasn't always doing the most productive things for my business or for my family, but it's because I made myself too busy. And so one of the things that I have found that now I so resonate with is the first thing that a lot of people have talked about so far is that AM schedule, like some sort of schedule that works for you. So that you can have a schedule for your day. I love, for me it's like I have, just kind of like Kristen and some of these other people that said, I have certain hours in my day that are blocked out each day for doTERRA, but I don't schedule them to the minute, because what I've found is when I've done that, I am not open to seek inspiration for what I really might need to do in that moment, and I wasn't as open to serve others on the spot. So now what I do is I am totally in the present moment and seeking intuition from God. And I ask, what am I supposed to do right now? And then I do it. And then I ask again, what am I supposed to do right now? And then I do it. And I have been living this way for a few months, and it is crazy the abundance that has come into my life. My entire doTERRA team fell away. Like everyone I had started out with was gone as a premier, and I built back up. And just in the last couple months, this schedule has worked so well. So number one, it is having some sort of time allotted, right? Scheduling some time, but then seeking that inspiration. And what I did, the way I started, I just did it one day. I was like, I'm going to devote one day to this, where I ask, what am I supposed to do right now? And the first thing that comes to my head, I go and do it. The first thing that God tells me. And then I ask again. And I did it for a solid day straight. And I couldn't believe how productive I was, because the place that I would fall into is not feeling like I'd done enough. Even though I was so scheduled, I'd go to bed feeling like I didn't do enough today. But you can't feel that when you're living in the present moment and you're seeking that inspiration from God. But the key is you have to act on it. You have to do whatever is told to you in that moment. And it can really be that simple. I'm not kidding. It can really be that simple. I feel like I love how Jacqueline says the time blocking thing, it didn't work for her. But you know what? That's I think, and she probably already knows this, but Jacqueline's intuition is too strong for time blocking. Like her intuition takes over. And that's a fabulous thing. It's a fabulous thing. Whatever works for you, you do it.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that the time blocks, the one thing that she did time block was time to receive inspiration.
Exactly. And that's why I love her. She's one of my favorites, by the way. Anyway, but yeah, that has been huge for me, is seeking that inspiration and acting immediately, because it will go away if you don't act immediately.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we're a couple minutes past the hour, and I don't want to make these calls longer than that. And we have a lot of hands that are raised right now, and I wish I could get to everybody. But you know what? I think I'm in charge of the Mastermind call next week, and I wouldn't mind continuing the topic of how do you do this as a mom with everything else that you're doing. I just want to end the call with this. Courtney sent me a text, and she said, I just hope every mom will just get clear on what doTERRA will do for them if they give it the priority it deserves. And isn't that really the case, right? That we talk about this all the time, the importance of having a why. Well, why is it important to have a reason to build doTERRA? And the reason for that is because it's hard, and you're going to be doing it. You're going to feel out of balance. You're going to be giving up time with the most precious assets that you have, which is your children. And as someone who thoroughly believes that any success, that no success can compensate for failure in the home, I thoroughly believe that. And so for me, I'll just say this, that, I'm a man, and so it's difficult for me to give you the advice that you may be looking for, but I just want you to know that my priorities in life start with God and my family, and then doTERRA comes after that. But the thing that I do is that when I take a week or a month, especially a week, if I'm planning out a week, I always ask myself, where do I need to fit God into my life? And then I schedule it. And then I ask, okay, where do I need to make sure that I'm meeting my needs to my family? And then I schedule it. And then I ask, where do I need to put my time for doTERRA? And it doesn't mean that I spend more time with my family or more time with God or more time with doTERRA. It just means that I spend the right amount of time making sure that those things get the priority of my time. I do have to admit that, and in that way, I can say that I actually do build my life around God and family. Personally, that's what I do. But when those things are scheduled, then I can make sure that doTERRA gets the time that it deserves. And I'm also flexible. So while normally every Friday night I set aside that time to spend with my wife and go on a weekly date with her to strengthen my relationship with her, there are times I need to be flexible. And sometimes that date becomes a lunch date on Wednesdays. When I have to be flexible. So flexibility is also extraordinarily important in making sure that those things are there. But I would say that instead of scheduling your time, schedule your priorities, and the time takes care of itself. And if you know what doTERRA is going to do for you, then make sure that you give it the time that it deserves. The only thing I can tell you is that the journey is worth it. The reward is worth it. What happens to your life when you start reaching diamond and blue diamond and beyond is so worth it that I would pay that price every single day. There's no way I look at how my life was pre-doTERRA and post-doTERRA, and I would never go back to that, ever, when I know how amazing it is now. And so, Courtney hit it on the head when she said that you just got to know why it is that you're doing this. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of you that raised your hands, but come back to next week's call and let's continue this topic. Thank you to everyone who participated. We'll see you next week.